So this right here is the Redmagic 10S Pro, which I reviewed a month ago and said it's one of the best gaming phones this year so far. And today Redmagic has come out with the new gaming tablet, the Redmagic Astra Gaming Tablet. So what we're gonna do here, we're gonna game test it right away. So with that being said, let's get started. So here is how we're gonna do this. We're going to run every game at the highest graphics possible, then at the highest frame rate possible to see what the tablet could achieve. At the same time, we'll be watching thermal of the tablet and the frame rates the game is running at. The tablet will be running at the rise mode the whole time for every single game, and also we do have the fan on for every game we're going to test. So let's start with the first one. So here we are, Delta Force is running at the highest graphics possible. Our temperature right now is 32 degrees and our frame rate is stable at 60 frames per second. Let's play the game for a bit and see if our temperature goes up or our frame rate drops down. So we have played for a while now, and as you can see here, our temperature is now at 33 degrees and our frame rate is stable at 59-60 frames per second. So this seems to be doing really well. We're gonna carry on playing for a little bit just to see if we can raise the temperature even more. Alright, so the temperature seems to be really stable. This is the effect of the fan, of course. And Delta Force runs really well on the maximum graphics. Let's start the maximum frame rate. Alright, so the highest frame rate we can get with Delta Force is 120 FPS, as you can see here. And it will drop down our graphics to HD. Here we are running at 120 FPS, as you can see here, and our temperature is 34 degrees. Just a reminder, we start the gaming test with 54% battery life. Let's see how much battery life we have at the end of the gaming test. So we have died finally, and we have our temperature at 35 degrees Celsius and our frame rate is very stable at 120 FPS. Delta Force runs really well on the Redmagic Astra. Okay guys, so the performance of Delta Force was sublime on this device, but only 1% of you are subscribed to the channel. It would mean the world to us if you subscribe so we can provide you with more quality content. So our second game is PUBG Mobile. So we're going to start with the Ultra HD graphics and the Ultra frame rate. Alright, so we have now landed in PUBG Mobile. Our temperature at the start is 34 degrees Celsius and our frame rate is 40 frames per second. We're gonna run around in the game and see if we can increase the temperature or drop down the frame rate. Alright, so we have pretty much played around the PUBG Mobile and our temperature is actually still the same, nothing has changed, and our frame rate is still stable at 40 frames per second. Let's dial up the frame rate and see how it goes. As you can see, we have the extreme frame rate here, but we want to go even further by going with the extreme plus. Let's see how it does. Alright, so as you can see here, PUBG Mobile is running right now at the highest frame rates possible. But something strange is happening as I am getting 90 frames per second for this game, while the Redmagic 10S Pro, which has the exact same processor, runs the game 120 FPS. I don't know what is going on with this. maybe because this is unreleased software for this tablet, but nonetheless it's running the game at 90 frames per second. Nonetheless, we're gonna run around and see if we can get our temperature up or our frame rate down. Alright, so we did run around for quite some time now. As you can see here, our temperature is still stable at 32 degrees Celsius, and our frame rate right now is 90 frames per second, which is not really acceptable. Oh, hold on, somebody's attacking us. Let's start the game. Alright, so as you can see here, we've been playing for a while, and our temperature has gone up from 32 degrees to 33 degrees, so it's not a significant difference. Our frame rate is still at 90 frames per second. It's quite disappointing. I thought this will run the game at 120 FPS since it has the same processor as the Redmagic 10S Pro and also has a fan inside. So maybe this needs a software update from the game or from the device itself. Let's jump to the next game. Alright, so our next game is Offroad League Online. Here we have our graphics settings set to the maximum possible, and the frame rate also goes to maximum of 60 frames per second. So even the draw distance, we're going to go to the highest possible. Here the shadow count also going to the highest possible, and everything is set to the maximum. Let's see how it does. Alright, so now the game is running. Our starting temperature is 34 degrees Celsius. Our frame rate is stable at 60 frames per second. Let's see if we can get our temperature up or our frame rate down. Let's go. So we had a collision in the game. As you can see here, the cars are kind of stuck together, but the game does look really stunning with the highest graphics possible. So the game is now running at 60 FPS, it's pretty stable, and temperature has gone down from 34 degrees to 35 degrees Celsius. So it's not a big difference. The game is running right now at the rise mode and the fan is currently on. This was Offroad League running on the Redmagic Astra. Let's go to the next one. Alright, so before we run our next game, we have already run 3 games and we lost 10% of battery life. Let's go to the next game, Once Human. So here are the graphics settings we run in the game at. We have the pinnacle graphics and the maximum frame rate possible at ultra high. Our resolution is capped at high, we cannot go above that. Then everything is set to the highest possible settings. Let's start the game and see how it does. So as you can see here, we're starting with a temperature of 36 degrees Celsius and our frame rate is capped at 60 frames per second currently. Let's run around, let's see if the temperature goes up or the frame rate goes down. Alright, so we did have our first boss fight in Once Human. Our temperature now is 37 degrees, so it did go up a little bit. Our frame rate is quite stable at 60 frames per second. This game runs really well on the Redmagic Astra Gaming Tablet. Alright, so our next game is Fortnite. Let's look at the graphics settings. So we have 90 frames per second max at this device, and then we do have the epic settings and everything maxed out. Let's see how the game does. So here is Fortnite running at the highest frame rate possible and the highest graphics possible. We have the temperature of 31 degrees starting, and we have our frame rate at 60 frames per second locked at the moment, even though on the settings we had 90 frames per second. So we're gonna play for a while and see how it does. Alright, so we did play the game for 8 minutes now, and we do have 16 kills, but I don't know if these are bots or real people, to be honest with you. And our temperature is 35 degrees Celsius, it's quite stable, it hasn't changed for a while, and our frame rate is 60 frames per second. This was Fortnite on the Redmagic Astra Gaming Tablet. So our next game is Genshin Impact. We're gonna run the game at the highest graphics possible and the highest settings of frame rate, which is 60 frames per second. So because the game was compiling the shaders, we have our temperature starting at 36 degrees Celsius and the frame rate stable at 60 frames per second. Let's play the game and see if we can get the temperature up or the frame rate down. Alright, so we have run this game for a while and the temperature is now 37 degrees Celsius. Our frame rate is really stable at 60 frames per second. This was Genshin Impact on the Redmagic Astra Gaming Tablet. Alright, our next game is Call of Duty Mobile. We're going to run this game at the highest frame rate possible, which is Ultra. Let's see how the temperature does and how the frame rate does. Alright, the game is now running. As you can see here, our starting temperature is 34 degrees Celsius and our frame rate is 120 FPS. I was surprised because the Redmagic 10S Pro runs the game at 144 FPS. So this is quite lower, but we're gonna run the game for a while and see if it does any dips in the temperature. So we have played Call of Duty Mobile for a while now, and let's see how the temperature is. So as you can see here, we have the temperature of 35 degrees Celsius and our frame rate is stable at 120 FPS. The game runs really well on the Redmagic Astra Gaming Tablet. Alright, our next game is on the Switch emulator, which is Dragon Ball Universe. Let's go find the fight so we can test the game and see how it does. We have a temperature of 34 degrees Celsius and a stable frame rate of 30 FPS. Let's go. Alright, so we're finally starting the battle right now. As you can see here, the game is running really smoothly at 30 frames per second, which is the native for the Nintendo Switch. And as you can see here, our temperature is quite stable. We've been running the game for a while now, and we have 34 frames per second. And I don't even see any graphical issues with the game. It's running really well, and it's really fun to play. But I do suggest that you play this game with a controller, because playing with the touch controls for an emulator is not that great. But emulation on this device is really good, since the Nintendo Switch is quite demanding to emulate, but it's running really stable and the temperature is not even budging. Alright, so let's finish this fight and see how the temperature does and how the frame rate does after. Alright, the fight is now over, and as you can see here, the game is still stable at 30 frames per second. Our temperature did not budge, it's still 34 degrees Celsius. But now, with the final event, let's go and try Winlator. However, just before we start, just a disclaimer, we are now at 18% of battery life. We started with 54 after 3 hours and a half of gaming. The battery is now at 18%. Alright, so first let me share my Winlator container settings. So what we have here is the resolution as 16 by 10, and we have our driver as the Vortex Universal driver because the Arduino drivers are not going to work on the latest Arduino chip. Then we have the X wrapper, and these are the settings we have for it. So we have the maximum memory at 4000 megabytes, and we have our custom device as the RTX 370. Then we go to the advanced settings, and we're running now at compatibility mode. If the game runs well, then we can switch to performance mode. Alright, so we have now Winlator ready, and we installed Skyrim Special Edition on this device. Let's run it and see what settings we can get. So let's go to options and put the lowest settings possible. Don't forget, this is a tablet running a PC game on it. So let's play the game and see how it does. Alright, so here's the game loaded up. We have downloaded some save games, so we don't have to start from the beginning. So we have a save game here, as you can see, and we're gonna continue from the last save. Alright, so here is Skyrim now running on Winlator, as you can see, and the game is running quite smoothly. As you can see, we have 34 degrees Celsius. The temperature is quite stable, so let's play the game for a while and see if we can get our temperature up. So as you can see here, we have the frame rates right now at 24 FPS. Sometimes it does go up to 30 FPS and even above that, but the gameplay is quite smooth, and the temperature has actually dropped down to 33 degrees when it was 34. That means the Redmagic Astra Gaming Tablet is handling Winlator quite well. Alright, so we're done with the emulation on the Redmagic Astra Gaming Tablet. It handled everything quite well. We have run Winlator and the Nintendo Switch emulator, and both run really well, and they are quite playable. As for Android games, it handled them all very well except PUBG Mobile, which I expected to have higher frame rate. So as Call of Duty Mobile, it did not have the 144Hz frame rate. So that's it for me, guys. I've been working on this video for past 5 hours, so I would appreciate a subscribe and a like for the video, and leave a comment about your thoughts about this device.